Exit Liquidity, where you find out how not to be fucking exit liquidity.
All right. This is episode 4 of our little season of NFT Summer. We got BOOBA, the chief meme officer at OmniX. Appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you always providing the timeline with insanely well developed MILADY memes. Yeah, so usually how we start these for the whole intro stuff is we want to hear about how you got into the space, yada yada, but we mainly want to hear about the most interesting time or the funniest time that you've been exit liquidity in your time in crypto.
Okay, that sounds good. So hey everybody. Again, my name is Booba Valley. I'm a founder and CEO at OmniX. I got into the space like big time, probably right at the start of the pandemic. Can't say that I'm class 2017 or 2015 in crypto, more like class 2021, I guess. Got into it mostly because I was interested in synthetic derivatives and just derivative trading overall, and it was hard to do on like traditional markets, and it was very fun to do on web3 markets back then. And in terms of me being exit liquidity, probably not the most fun time, but definitely the whole like Olympus thing was a great instance of me being an exit liquidity. I ended up back holding from 4 figures and then to like mid 5 figures, and then round trips almost all of it with Olympus DAO last year and 2 years ago. So that's probably the best Booba Values exit liquidity example, honestly.
Yeah, that basically makes you like a DeFi OG at this point. I remember that stunt. Did you get into the like forks on every single chain, or were you just on the what kind of caught your eye with the whole NFT space?
That's a good question, actually. I think for me, it was like it was almost 2 years ago. I was still working on my previous project, which was supposed to be like a multi-chain Chrome extension DeFi wallet. I guess DBank plus base wallet kind of thing. But I was looking to pivot away from that project because there are a few things about wallets that just make them very unappealing to me now. One of them being very like high retention rates. Like people are extremely not enthusiastic about switching wallets, right? So trying to make somebody switch from MetaMask or like Rainbow to Xfolio, it would be very hard. And then also, there's just a lot of JavaScript from the technical side. There's a lot of like in browser communication that you have to build out between the pop up, between the content scripts and the background scripts and the page itself. And I was just like not about. And right around then, so that was like November 2021, I found Layer Zero guys. Actually, Chainlink team pointed me towards Layer Zero, which is pretty funny. But yeah, I found them. I started participating in their closed beta, and I noticed that they built out like a natively cross-chain fungible token. So I was like, oh, okay, let's see. I wasn't even into NFTs back then that much, but I just was curious to see how this technology would play out with NFTs instead. And yeah, that's how I started working on all this cross-chain NFT stuff, and eventually just pivoted away and never came back professionally to DeFi.
And
Yeah, we are trying to roll out incentivized testnet phase 2 soon. I had a few delays just because we're optimizing the team really and rebuilding a couple things on the back end. But yeah, ideally, like next week, we'll launch it for our community. And yeah, regarding the name, OmniX was always there because when I just switched to these cross-chain NFTs, I actually was not planning to build OmniX. We were more talking about something called Omni Wars, which was supposed to be this like cross-chain game. And I still think that the concept is super, super viable. No one has just done it yet. We were like, all right, look like we're not going to be able to actually build this game, not only because we were lacking expertise specifically in like game dev, but also because I think it's just incredibly hard to build like actually fun blockchain games. Let's just build on top of that. And yeah, ever since then, I think we fully rebranded into OmniX like last summer, maybe. Yeah, I think it was after consensus last summer. So yeah, and ever since then, been just full time on this.
Awesome. And then I guess what's your kind of like long-term thesis on OmniX obviously, but more so generally interoperability for NFTs specifically, or seamless interoperability. Because obviously, like in my mind, the utility behind having that functionality is still far down the line, like with pretty much any functionality with NFTs. So I'm wondering how you see that, I don't know, a year, 2 years from now, whenever it's become more mature.
Right. Yeah, I forgot to answer the previous question about the OmniX vision. So I guess the vision for OmniX long term is just deliver as like seamless UX as possible and combine liquidity and communities for NFTs not only from multiple marketplaces but also from multiple chains in one place. And then when it comes to NFT interoperability itself, I think it just takes like time to really see good use cases play out. A big one has been like DGOT slash Utes migrating from Solana to Ethereum and Polygon, right? And then like we can argue that was a good move or that wasn't a good move, but it was certainly very interesting. Another one, I think specifically like because OmniX supports a couple things, right? And maybe I should take a step back here and just explain the product a little more. There are two main things. So the first one is the aggregator, and the second one is the launchpad. So what the aggregator does, it uses Reservoir API and then also Stargate and Layer Zero to essentially collect all orders from multiple marketplaces. For now, we're testing with OpenSea and Gorly, but it works the same way for any marketplace, really. So you collect all the orders in one place. You have your own order book that we maintain on top of our database, and then you basically through Stargate and Layer Zero, you enable cross-chain trades for that entire order book. So like you can use OmniX, for example, to settle orders on OpenSea on ETH while paying for them from like Arbitrum. Or you can use OmniX just as a multi-chain NFT marketplace, which is also very interesting to see because a ton of people, and maybe that's on us too, but a lot of people who used our beta, they didn't even use cross-chain features. They just liked to use the products like on multiple chains without crossing the bridge really. So that's also like a possibility with OmniX that you can completely tap out from any cross-chain features if you just don't feel like using them. So yeah, that's the exchange part, and then the launchpad part. Essentially, we help creators to launch new natively cross-chain NFT collections, ONFTs. And so the cool thing about ONFTs is that they give you a ton of flexibility. I think the most appealing one is like not having to choose between the UX and the liquidity anymore. Because what you can do and what I recommend projects doing, at least in this market, is like minting your entire supply on ETH, right? So you get ETH liquidity, you get ETH community into your thing. But then you can enable like seamless bridging to Arbitrum or to Polygon or to I don't know, like BNB chain, literally any other chain that will make the UX better. And that could work for any kind of project. I think for gaming projects, especially, this is like a viable thing to do. But really, for any project that does not want all of their holders to have to deal with ETH gas fees for forever to go about this way about deploying their project. And this is why, like, with NFT interoperability, it's cool for us because we don't really care. We know that it is needed. The PMF is there, but we don't really care necessarily where this interoperability goes. So, for example, as of recently, more activity has been flowing back to Ethereum, probably for security reasons, and probably because people think that they're gonna get rugged less on Ethereum. But whatever it is, like it doesn't kill our thesis at all because now we can help onboard people from other chains back to Ethereum seamlessly. So you can use your Arbitrum airdrop to buy a I don't know, like whatever NFT you like on Ethereum in a single transaction. So either way, OmniX will be there to serve any direction that the liquidity goes in. We don't necessarily prefer it, like we don't have a preference whether it goes like from Ethereum to L2s and alt chains or from L2s and alt chains back to Ethereum.
What's your I think we've talked about this a little bit, but I'm curious to hear what your like alt L1 thesis is. Obviously in your position it's like beneficial to retain some level of like agnosticity, but I would imagine, as far as I know, you're relatively like ETH maxi as well. So I'm curious to hear what you think of other L1s.
Yeah, no, I am relatively a ETH maxi myself. I think ETH has problems and L2s still have problems, but overall I think this is where the future is going. In terms of alt L1s, I mean, I guess I have personal opinions on each one from business perspective. Again, we don't really have a preference here. I think we are applying for BNB grants this month. We are applying for Moonbeam grants this month, I think. And yeah, I think that's about it, honestly. And alternative L1s, like, it's fun to have them, and I think they still have PMF. I just don't see how they're gonna stack up against L2s in the long term. Because right now, like, all L2s are totally centralized, which is fine, but so are all these L1s, right? Or at least most of them. And so it's going to be interesting to see how they try to take like the market share and the revenue from each other while L2s are like, oh, L2s can only get better, I think. We have a lot of like EAPs coming up as well as just like developments on the part of those teams. And then with L1s, it feels like everything got a little stale because the L1 rotation trade is just not there anymore. So no one cares about Avalanche, for example, right, anymore. Or I don't know, or like Phantom. They're still building stuff. They're still Phantom is actually an interesting one because they did change the VM a lot, so it like allows for a couple cool things that you cannot do on Ethereum or L2s. But it's still very small. Yeah, I don't know. We support them. I personally don't have a strong preference towards L1s. I use Polygon myself here and there, but that's about it, to be honest. Yeah, not a L1 maxi, but also I don't think they're gonna die like tomorrow.
Yeah. What kind of stuff are you usually doing on Polygon? I'm a ETH Maxi as well, but I'm also a little bit of a Polygon like hater.
You're
Do
a
you
huge Polygon hater. Little kidding.
just a little bit, just a tad bit. I think the most useful thing, I mean, that me and Ollie had come up with to be able to actually do on Polygon is probably the Trump NFT. So I'm curious what else you got cooking over there.
Yeah, no, it was Trump NFTs.
That's the
I
yep.
did become exit liquidity for Redditors on that one for sure. I only bought one though, and it wasn't even the Trump NFT. It was the NFT that gives you like a group Zoom call with him. So it was the Trump trophy NFT, like that line, not the OG one. But aside from that, I really just use Polygon, to be honest, not even for NFT stuff, but like for small payments here and there. So if I have like a Fiverr contractor kind of situation where I have to pay a couple $100 to somebody, I'm probably gonna do it on Matic just because fees are cheaper. And then it's also convenient that a lot of like centralized platforms. So I don't use like Sexes at all pretty much lately, but I do use a couple other platforms like for I don't know, for purchasing Steam gift cards, let's say. And yeah, those work great with Matic too. So really, yeah, not much of a not much of a Polygon NFT guy, but just for I guess like everyday things like that, it's pretty useful.
Yeah, and in terms of ranking the alt L1s, where has you said a lot of the OmniX user testing has been focused in like the Ethereum world, but even with the NFT5 specific like activity, me and Ollie were looking a bit about like just even trying to claim the points for the NFT5 system or whatever, like it's exuberant amounts of gas and it's just not efficient. Are you seeing a lot of that activity for NFTs move to places like Arbitrum, or is it still Solana taking that second place lead for you guys?
I think unfortunately, or yeah, I guess unfortunately, at least in my case, Solana has been still top two blockchain for NFTs, and I think anticipating like a renaissance, or I don't even know if can call it a renaissance because it was never really there, but like a bloom of NFT activity on these other chains is something that we at OmniX are trying to facilitate through this like seamless bridging as well as NFT releases, right? Like crushing NFT releases. But yeah, as of now, I think NFT people are just extremely sensitive to like custodial, non-custodial nature of their assets. And you could see it in like FTX collapse. Like a lot of DeFi people and like trading people got hurt, but none of NFT people got impacted at all, well, directly, right from that. And so I think that's like a similar kind of thing where NFT people really care about where their JPEG is on what blockchain, and just because I don't know. I think it has been mostly like security related and like degeneracy maybe led like boom on Ethereum that we see like with meme coins right now and a bunch of other shit. But ultimately, I think we're still in the bear market, and the gas goes up to 200 gwei, like 120, pretty much on a regular now. So considering like EIP 1559, they could only imagine how much burn and how much gas there will be like at the peak of the next bull run. So I think inevitably this activity will have to spill over to something like Arbitrum, which still very much supports the same kind of like good degeneracy, but also provides like better UX. And this is why we're doing what we're doing, because we want to prepare for that future and be ready to onboard people from ETH and other chains to L2s essentially through cross-chain NFTs and through OmniX as a whole.
Yeah, I also think like there is going to be a awakening on Arbitrum, especially with all the GameFi stuff they're doing. So, for instance, if someone was to make that move from like L1 to L2 with their NFTs and with the liquidity that they're using in their NFTs, and you're seeing a lot, especially in the MILADY community, it's become like common. Like they're very engaged in financializing their NFTs, doing like degenerate shit with it, LPing in different places. How do you think that like transitions for someone using OmniX in the future, going from L1 to L2?
So it's really just as easy as clicking a couple buttons, honestly. So for like bridging NFTs, we essentially built in that functionality into the same like transfer dialog that any other NFT marketplace has. You go to like OpenSea, you click transfer, and like you just select the address of the other person. So we have the same thing, but instead of just selecting the address, you also select the chain where you want to send it. So I think that makes it extremely easy to bridge NFTs, at least on our platform. And then liquidity is like the same. So again, you just have to be connected to the network that you want to pay off, but it doesn't matter like what network the NFT is on. So when you browse collections on OmniX, listings on all these different chains, especially for like natively cross-chain NFT collections, but even for like regular NFTs just on Ethereum, you see all their listings, and then you can buy them just in the same way you would buy any NFT on OpenSea. It's just that you might need like another approval transaction for Stargate, and then pay a little gas to get that payment from one chain to another. So it's very seamless, and pretty proud of what the work our team has done so far, but there's still a lot to test out and conceptualize with this cross-chain NFT space.
In terms of like how that works on the back end, will liquidity just route directly through Stargate pools and then be transferred to where it needs to be?
Yeah, so for cross-chain NFT trading, that's exactly how it works pretty much. So the cool thing about Stargate is that it always guarantees you that the liquidity will be there on that chain. So you always know if you can pull that trade or not. And then, yeah, we just send it via Stargate. OmniX essentially acts as a atomic market maker on each chain. So it would take your money from Stargate from one chain, and then it would go to on the destination chain, it would go to Seaport to execute the order, or it would execute the order itself if it's our listing on OmniX, and then, yeah, route that money to the seller and then transfer the NFT to the buyer.
And how quick are those transactions compared to a normal OpenSea purchase?
Yeah, that's a good question too. It all really depends on the congestion, and not only of the chain congestion, but also of layer zero congestion. Sometimes, like on testnet, if we're not doing ETH, if it's like between L2 and L1, it's probably around 30 seconds to a minute. If it involves ETH and the congestion is high, it could take like multiple minutes. And we're also working on that optimization too, which will involve a custom LZ setup. But for now, the numbers are in that kind of magnitude.
And so you're saying the NFT itself, does that actually end up leaving the original chain? Is it wrapped in a specific way and sent to another chain?
They actually changed it up quite a bit. So when we were just getting started, all OFTs and also ONFTs were transferred mostly through burn and mint mechanism. So you would take the NFT on the source chain, you would burn it, and then send the data about it to the destination chain, and then mint it back into the existence on the destination chain. But I think that way was messing with the provenance way too hard, because the only way to restore the full provenance was to go back and essentially track all these like layer zero events on other chains, and that was getting messy. And I think they fully moved on now, and our second NFT collection on mainnet is using that mechanism. It is essentially like wrapping them. You take the NFT on the source chain, it gets locked in the smart contract on that chain, right? And then they mint you a new one on the destination chain.
Interesting. I think that's pretty useful, especially for as NFT fi liquidity providing and lending and borrowing gets a bit more expensive to even do. I think it'll be interesting to see, and there's already insanely low liquidity across like all of these NFT fi platforms. Is there a world where OmniX gets involved in that aspect and just it seems like an easy win to use that Stargate liquidity that's always there to be able to facilitate like the desperate need for liquidity that NFTFi has right now. Facilitate the borrowing and lending. Is that in
Right.
the cards?
Yeah, we definitely do want to work more on NFT-Fi integrations and essentially providing cross-chain liquidity as a service to all the different platforms that might want to use it. One good example, we haven't really started on that collaboration, but it is in the works, is a cross-chain vault with Insert Finance. They essentially do these vaults where they take a NFT, they put it to earn yield, right? And then they like fractionalize that position. So what we want to do is do the same thing, but like cross chain, probably between ETH and Arbitrum, where essentially like the JPEG remains on ETH, it never leaves ETH, it earns yield on ETH, etc., etc. But you can get exposure to that JPEG natively on another chain, right? And so that helps with the UX, that people don't have to bridge and spend gas and money on that, right? They can just trade by that like piece of that or of that ape on Arbitrum or BNB chain or whatever. But it also helps those chains because it like the liquidity doesn't leave the chain. It remains there. They're not bridging off that chain. So I think yeah, the use cases like this are pretty interesting to explore. And we also talked to guys from Protect XYZ. They wanted to do some like market making with us. I should probably hit them back up soon. But yeah, no, although OmniX doesn't offer any and technically NFTFi, I guess, products on its own, we are highly compatible with any other existing solution there. And yeah, I am looking forward to exploring more of these use cases like the one with Insert Finance in the future.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I think sometimes Insert boosts up the price of their NFTs, but yeah, it's a great product when they do those. In terms of your guys' plan to go from your test net to like fully launching, I know you guys have the Greg NFTs at the moment. Could you talk a little bit about what those do for holders and how you think about the way talked about tokens on this podcast has not really been about like, oh, when are you dropping a token, blah, blah, blah. Just trying to understand how founders really identify a weakness in their protocol and see how a token can like best facilitate that weakness and turn it into a strength, really. So how do you go about thinking about something like that?
So yeah, with our NFTs, we did release Greg's last summer. They took a while to mint out, 6 or 7 months, but they did finally mint out this January, I think. So that collection was just like an experiment, really. We didn't know exactly what we were doing at first, and we were still kind of contemplating building out that game. So Greg himself, actually, like the little like face that you see on these coins, is the one of like main characters of the game that I was talking about before. So he is like a recycled video game asset, essentially. And the idea there was to make like a meme coin as an NFT. And yeah, basically make that kind of like a meme utility first collection of the ecosystem. And as of now, we're also minting our second collection, Omni Elements, which is the PFP collection. I think 50% has minted out already, and we're about to do reveal this week, which should help to boost the mint out further. And the main utility from Grex is just being able to access our beta. So our beta is live on omni-x.io, but it's token gated. So you have to own either Greg or an element to get access to it. And once you get access, you can play around and not only help us test the product, but participate in incentivized testnet whenever that is live. So we had one phase of incentivized testnet already a month ago. We incentivized people just to trade like pure volume. So that was interesting to see because people were just abusing the fuck out of it, and they were making like bots that would claim a lot of like faucet USDC and then dump that faucet USDC on the market. So that was pretty cool to see like how people stress test and already build like automated strategies on top of Omni. But yeah, our second incentivized testnet phase should be coming soon. And then regarding the token, I think we always understood that we needed like a governance token. And I'm sorry if like you guys usually have more advanced use cases for it, but for us, I think it's very important for teams like us to start off just with the governance and maybe implement a couple cool core concepts at the very base level. But ultimately, I think that all these tokens, including our token, should be just governance, and then the DAO kind of decides where to go next and what features to build out next. So in OmniX case, there's a lot to govern. You can govern chain expansion. You can govern the curation process because OmniX is also curated. We don't serve every single NFT from every single support chain. We have like lists of whitelisted collections that we work with. So you can govern that too on OmniX. You can govern incentives. So we're gonna have launchpad incentives, where basically if people mint OmniX launchpad collections, they get some of that token distributed to them. So it's very similar to trading rewards, just exactly the same thing, but just for minting collections. So I think, yeah, those are two main things. So first of all, obviously governance, and then second is building this like new incentive structures just to make people use the platform more.
Why is you when you first mentioned governance, you talked about it like it's like the intuitive next step. Why is it that you see that as the case, as like it being necessary?
I think any like sizable protocol should be decentralized or at least somewhat decentralized in this industry. And ultimately, we do want the community to decide what the platform is doing. And as I said, this like chain expansion to other verticals. So I don't know, maybe they can vote on us just incubating like gaming projects for a month or incubating this specific project, right? There's a lot in terms of this curation slash like expansion process that you can do with the token, really. So I'm pretty excited for that. And then we also did have a couple like cool mechanics in place. I think one of them would be like buy and build model. I think Yorn has been doing it lately, where you take some percent of the protocol revenue perpetually and you use it to buy back the token, but then you don't burn the token, you just vest that token aside and you essentially wait and see what the DAO decides to do with it, whether to spend it on grants or rewards on the platform, right? So like trading or launchpad rewards, or burn it to increase the price and decrease the supply, etc. That's like also an interesting model that we would like to explore. But yeah, ultimately, I think all of these like cool things should be later adopted by the DAO and not by the core team.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I want to transition a little bit here into we knew it was coming into Milady's a little bit more because I'm still sidelined, not totally sidelined, but more sidelined than I would have liked to been over the past, man, I don't know, like 2 months now, I'd say. I think I was like messaging you as I was like missing my entries just barely, and it was just running up like fucking crazy. What made that community stand out to you from such an early point in time?
I think for me, and I think I talked about it on a different podcast too, but it's always a nice story to revisit. I think for me, like last year at least, Miladies were there for me, like on the orbit. I definitely noticed them early, but I also didn't understand Milady at first. And then a big onboarding experience, really, when I tapped into that community for the first time was at permissionless. in West Palm Beach. There was like an after party, and I ended up just having a really good time at an after party with a couple Milady whales. And I don't want to say I bonded with those guys, but there was just something there where I was like, damn, like this could be like a great friends of mine. Like I would hang with these guys like every weekend. This kind of like feeling, and both of them. I don't even know if actually Jack had a lot of Miladies back then, but like his friend or that dude, he had like over 100 of them, and that was like pre-cancel too. And so I talked to him a little bit, and just like the levels of conviction that he had in this project were like insane. And I really didn't understand it at first. And then over the same summer, like the cancel happened, right? So all that like past online past of Charlotte came up and crashed pretty hard. I think they went from like one something ETH to zero point 0.5, 0.4. And this is where I started scooping. This is where I bought my first Milady at zero point 0.4 last summer, because it was just, I don't know, the combination of having that very nice IRL experience with just seeing all the like fun and unhingedness that is going on the Twitter timeline. I think that's what made it special for me. And then, to be honest, I wasted a lot of time because I still live here in New York, and I didn't utilize Milady community to its fullest up until last December, really. So I didn't really go to Milady raves at first or meetups or whatever. But then over last December, both in Miami at Art Basel and here back in New York, I just started. I don't know. You just see stuff going on in your timeline, like Milady party here. You just ask to come through, and yeah, you start making your way into all these like Twitter chats, into all these groups where actual Miladies are hanging. And yeah, ever since last December, that's when I first met a lot of New York Miladies, including Jimbo, co-founder of Rumilia. And yeah, I just started hanging with those guys a lot. I went to, it wasn't a Milady rave, but it was a rave organized by Miladies, also in New York, for New Year's Eve, and that was a lot of fun as well. And yeah, ever since then, just been like sticking to that community, trying to contribute however I can with memes and helping incubate Milady derivatives and stuff like that.
Interesting. I actually wasn't aware of like that number of IRL events going on around any NFT collection. I knew they always held them, but I didn't know it was with like a level of frequency like that. And you mentioned the lady rave casually, like it's like a household term almost. Are they that like big of a thing in the community?
Yeah, no, they're huge, and this is how the community, I guess, got bootstrapped. So like Rumilia usually throws like official Milady raves. They've done a few of them in New York, and then they did one in London, and then they did one in Tokyo just recently. So I don't even know where the next one is gonna be. But yeah, this Milady raves are supposed to be like, and they really are like, I guess, spiritual IRL like community service experience where people just come together to have fun and just hang with each other. And I think like one superpower of Milady is being super inclusive, and this is the only like real NFT community, as we call it, just because it's just, like super decentralized, and but people actually still hang with each other. And this is practically the only community where like there are actually girls holders, and you don't show up to the party like with apes and it's just like 99% like dudes. Here it's, I wouldn't say like 50-50, but more like 60-40. But because Miladies are having so much fun, it just ultimately attracts all the adjacent people, which are not necessarily even crypto people, but they understand the appeal. And they're usually like in arts, or they do fashion, or they do some day job, whatever it is. But they ultimately have that kind of like culture in them. And they also tend to come to some of these events, which is really cool because like I love nerding out on crypto shit, obviously, but I don't want to be doing this like 24/7, and especially like probably I don't want to be doing this at 4 a.m. on a Saturday at an after party. And this is why Milady is great, because usually you would end up with 30-40% of the people in the room being like blockchain autistic developers slash founders, and then the rest are going to be people who don't even know what a blockchain is. It's going to be like artists, as I said, I don't know, like research people, like political science people, all kind of people really, especially here in New York. So yeah, this race is like a big deal. And then Rumilia, themselves are not doing way too much IRL stuff anymore. I think they're all like traveling a lot and shit. But obviously, the community is large and the community has great people who also throw events. So there's at least something every weekend here in New York that is like related to maybe it's not gonna be an official Milady thing, but it's gonna be a thing like co-hosted by two big like Milady, I guess, holders slash like community members, and so everyone would still hang with each other. So yeah, I think IRL experiences really play a big part here for sure.
Wow, interesting. I think that's the first time I've heard of someone who became involved in something crypto related and NFT community specifically via IRL interactions. That's really cool. I like that a lot. Are there any other like NFT communities that stand out to you? I guess in this case you had a personal connection from the start, but are there any others that you have a particular eye on or you had maybe something similar happen with?
To be honest, as of now, I'm gonna be only personally investing and engaging with Remilia ecosystem NFTs. I don't wanna really own any other NFT anymore or like speculate on any other NFT anymore. So for me, the focus lately has been Remilios, and Remilios is a Milady derivative, but I think it's really special because in a way, Remilios are even more Remilia than Miladies are, and that's because Milady was like the first collection that kind of went through all the struggle and all the like issues of like first time, I guess, NFT release slash founders. But Remilio is like Milady after they did some homework, basically. So Remilio, first of all, it's insanely cool because it was born out of a pure psy-op. Like they started Remilio as an anti-Milady Twitter account slash project, and that's how they built kind of marketing for it and the attention and awareness around it, which I think is really cool. So yeah, as of lately, I've been deep in Remilios, and it's been a pleasure to see like other big, or I guess I'm not that big, but some big people in the space. My personal account, specifically like from their personal accounts, stayed from Pseudo Swap, for example. He switched to Remilio, and then we also have Z or Degen Harambe, like a big crypto Twitter trader. He's also switched to Remilios, and then there are also a bunch of other like crypto Twitter influencers who are rocking Remilia ecosystem JPEGs. Usually, it's going to be a Remilio or a Schizo poster, and we can talk about those too. But yeah, I'd say I focus mostly on these three collections: Remilio and Schizo posters. I completely paper handed Pixeladies. So Pixelady is not the only other derivative that is official with Miladies is Pixeladies, and I ended up just paper handing them real bad. I scooped up like a few dozen at 005, and I sold all of them before 01, and then they went to 015 and 018. So I'm totally sidelined with Pixeladies, but Remilios are my main focus now in Miladies. And then out of non-Remilia JPEGs, I think punks are still cool. Not really, to be honest, because Yuga owns them now, and you don't even trade the punk itself. You trade like a wrapped V2 punk. Yeah, I can say that I'm honestly really into or paying attention to any other PFP collections at least. I still like art blocks a lot. I think generative art is really cool. And like terraforms are pretty cool too. Not as an investment opportunity, but just as an art piece, right? So I still like those a lot. I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of like checks or open editions like that one. I think they're a little grifty in the way they're set up. But yeah, I'm fully Remilia pill. I really don't care about any other PFPs. I think ultimately every other PFP collection will lose because all of these who is still afloat, right? So Pudgies are still afloat, apes are still somewhat afloat. That's really it. The guys are still afloat, okay, but everything else has died. Like Clonax is in dumpster now, Moonbirds are in dumpster now, Cool Cats are in dumpster now. I don't know. I think most of these, the absolute majority of the collections will just follow their way with like Moonbirds or Clonax did, because ultimately what happens when you have highly commercial people running collections like that is that they turn their user base, their holders, into a constant liquidity source. So Clonex, for example, right, like they released clones, and then they would keep dropping those like AR items slash collections, and like holders would just spend more money on them, and that's it. That's the whole flywheel, is make more money for your holders at the very start in 2021, and then use that money that they made to essentially like eventually just suck it all out into these like other releases. So yeah, all these like Azuki and Pudgies that are still doing somewhat well, I think they're both. Actually, Charlotte posted like a decent piece on it on his Twitter last night, but I think it's a fair comparison between Disney Azuki and like a kind of offbeat, off-brand Disney. So both of these projects were not really launched with becoming like a mass market brand power in mind. They were both rugged, right? Cole was rugging to Penguins, right? And then Gaband was like, I guess not rugging Azuki, but definitely not bringing positive attention to it. So both of these projects had to pivot and restructure and change the team to find their PMF. And I don't know. I just not as optimistic on them as I'm on Milady or Remilia or any other collection like that.
So we usually ask you basically, Milady and Remilio pilled us a bit, at least me. I mean, I was a fan of Milady's like a while back, but I also just never pulled the trigger. I was like bidding at point 0.1 or 0.09, like below floor for no fucking reason. And yeah, the ecosystem sounds awesome. We ask a little bit about just some hot takes. I think I know the answer to this question, but are you taking punks or apes?
I would take points, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you see like what probability percent do you put ladies taking over floor price of apes?
I'm gonna say 100.
Yeah, I mean, it's unironically, it's 100%. It's just a matter of when, not if. And I personally think that Remilios will flip Miladies too. So
Really?
yeah, while Miladies are flipping apes, I think Remilios will flip. Maybe that will take more time, but I think the dynamics that are in place right now clearly show that I don't know. Remilio might run up more for a few reasons. First of all, it's knowing that it has all these NFT Fi integrations coming for him, like NFT Perp and later like Blur and Blend, etc. And like with Milady, it seems like the liquidity has almost been like fully saturated now, and you can actually see it very well if you go on NFTX and you compare like Remilio liquidity to Milady liquidity on NFTX, you'll see that they're almost the same, while Remilio price is 3 times less. So if Milady has been working on deep liquidity, then Remilio has been working even more, while it's still smaller. So I think yeah, we will see Remilio flipping apes. What I just don't see like what can Yuga do to keep relevant. I just don't know what they can do. You can again like this is the same thing. You can just like airdrop your holders and make new releases for your holders as a focal point of your brand. It's like you have to provide them with something more than that. And I don't see how Yuga, even if they do, in the end of the day, like even if they do, it's still not going to be as cool as Milady. And
Do you think the game metaverse angle that they're taking is even viable for them, or even viable for like
yeah, I
a
don't,
NFT
I
project?
don't find it, I don't find it particularly viable. I think it's really cool, but to be honest, like it's literally the same thing as Fall Guys. It's literally the same using the same engine. It's essentially Fall Guys with like custom levels and custom skins. And a big, I don't want to call it like a misconception, but I think people who play those kind of games and people who want to be JPEG rich, which is what apes were supposed to be, and I guess still somewhat are, these are not necessarily the same people. Like I can't see every ape holder logging into that metaverse like every night and actually enjoying that metaverse over like video games that they enjoy or like movies or shows that they enjoy or just time spent with friends. Yeah, it's very cool what they're doing. Yuga definitely knows where to find like right teams and right people to build stuff for them. But as a concept as a whole, I don't think your shit is going to zero, cousin. This is what I would say.
And I mean, you saw the I think Penguins they recently raised. Do you see something like that? We were talking about how like they milk their holders and just basically turn them into exit liquidity at a certain point. But like we saw with Doodles, how, I mean, since their raise, they've been downhill only. Do you think something similar happens to like the Pudgy ecosystem?
Maybe not something exactly like that. It seems like Pudgies have better management and better leadership in place, and there's still a lot of people in the space who I respect and look up to that rock Pudgies a lot. Like entire Layer Zero team are extremely heavy on Pudgies, for example, and like I love those guys. But ultimately, again, these projects were launched as a cash grab. They were never meant or launched to be a like a mass market bridging Web3 into Web2 kind of thing. It's people who bought these projects out, like I guess Suzuki or Pudgies or Kanpai Pandas, whatever. They got stuck with that IP that they didn't create and they didn't plan for. And now their only way to like gaslight people and convince people and build a brand around it is to start pushing this brand that they didn't even create in the first place into like mass market. And I just don't think that Pudgies or Pandas or whatever else has really been optimized for it from the start. If you look at something like Hello Kitty or like Pokemon, you can tell that these were made with the purpose of turning into a huge franchise in the future, right? Like they were meant to be super appealing, family friendly, so for both adults and kids. They have some like cool lore slash backstory slash like skills to them, etc., etc. Like when you look at Pudgies, and I don't want to FUD, but like what you see a fat bird, like that you don't. I don't know. I guess like plush toys with Pudgies could go hard, but overall you don't see that kind of lore. You don't see that kind of like appeal that you would have with these like more traditional like Disney or Japanese like characters, right? So here it's yeah, you I don't know. I don't wanna look into the future and say that yeah, Pudgies will bleed out because they just raised. But yeah, as you're saying, see that like that happened to Doodles, that happened to Moonbirds. It seems like Pudgies have a much more crypto native team that those collections. So I would hope that they're gonna do the right thing, but again, I don't think like these projects were not created for what they're doing right now, and I think that's an issue.
That's hilarious. He said, "I don't want to FUD," and then proceeded to just point out everything wrong with it. I agree with you on a lot of different counts there. I do also want to hear, because I haven't fully heard your take on this, but I've heard like a little bit here and there. I know you're not the biggest fan of moonbirds. I'm wondering what the rationale is there, what you like. I guess I don't know that there is anything that you like, but what you don't like about them.
Yeah, so for an NFT marketplace founder, I'm definitely fairly opinionated, and this is why we have a curation system in place, so I can make my Remilia pixelated list and have that on OmniX, and then other members of my team can have other lists that they like. But yeah, I think Moonbirds is the worst collection by far. It's very clear why, to be honest. First of all, they started with an insanely high mint price, right? So it was like 2.5 ETH for pre-sale, which is just insane because like apes were minting at 0.008, Kanpai Pandas were minting for $400, which is like 0.2, 0.15, right? I forgot what Pudgies were minting for, but also in the same kind of magnitude. So Moonbirds is just the manifestation of Web2 tourists like Ryan and the whole proof thing really coming to Web3 to farm the cloud and farm the liquidity here. Yeah, what is there to say? Like they are wildly incompetent. Ryan specifically, I think they should go to jail for what they did. I think it's a clear, like in traditional finance, at least here in the US, you would definitely get in trouble for doing that, which is essentially like starting an NFT project, doing a massive race for that NFT project, and then instantly leaving that NFT project after you grab the cash to start a fund that would invest in the same project and then act as your like non solicit with that project anymore. That's just wild to me, dude. These things should not be very much legal, or they should be done completely anonymous, completely Web3 fashion. And like this, people have always been mixing up with like Web2 with Web3. So yeah, they haven't delivered much to their holders aside from what I think there was a couple irrelevant a fanny pack and then a fanny pack, bro, and then a I think oddities, right? I don't remember if it was a airdrop or a free mint for Moonbird holders, but there was like a secondary collection there too. And yeah, It's just the wrong kind of leadership. Like, those people, they don't actually know what they're doing. And Ryan showed it very well with his fund. His fund is down only. I think he got practically baited and scammed with Bitcoin, ordinal CryptoPunks, when that boom was happening. Because again, these are just cloud chasers and hype chasers. They don't actually care about the tech. They don't care about the community. They just want to get the money. And then, I guess, proof is like not unique, but what they're also trying to do is push their artists. And I've never seen a single good piece of art come out of that whole thing. Like, it's all pixelated, like garbage, in my opinion. But art is obviously subjective. So if you like pixelated, I don't know, like birds are not. I know Ali has a pixelated bird on his profile right now, so
Yeah,
I don't
man,
want to
what
hurt.
the hell?
I don't want to hurt your feelings, Ali. I love Nouns Dao, you know that. But yeah, moonbirds are not even that bad in terms of the art. I think oddities are absolutely horrible, and there was a couple more proof collections getting released that were also looking very bad. So I think the combination of just like low effort art, complete transparency when it comes to just like cash grabbing here in Web3 versus like actually building, as well as just the community that this combination has attracted. And yeah, they just make them a no go for me, and they have been down only. I think the floor now is 2 or something, 3 or something, which is like pretty much below
Almost less than a mil.
yeah, yeah, that's not even a question. Remillas will flip this garbage any time at this point. But yeah, it is below, almost below pre-sale price, or like below pre-sale price, and it's like down 90 or 95% since the top. So yeah, I think with NFT collections, there are always two type of charts. There's like always there are two type of charts. There's a moonbird, and then there's a milady. The moonbird type of chart, you can observe it on pretty much any popular 2021 collection. It's this massive boom at the beginning, right? This massive hype flowing in, and then slow bleed out over the time due to market forces, due to the team not executing, leading well, due to, I don't know. Yeah, all these other teams, like, they focused on building these IP brands for things that were not even meant to be IP brands, while Milady and Remilia were focusing on just getting deeper liquidity. Like, who? It's so clear who's the winner here. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
It's just so evident that while Milady was focusing on IRL community building and spreading the network spirituality and deepening the liquidity with all these integrations, NFTX, NFT Perp, etc., yeah, those guys released fanny packs and tried to push like GIFs and like cartoons with their characters.
Do you think so? Do you think Milady wins off of a promise of no promise? Because I never bag held. I never really held one, but I was a fan of the, what were they called? The goblins, something like that. Where those guys were just like in Twitter spaces, just like screaming and like grunting. Deep, but like they had their run up, but they've shit the bed in terms of just like a false promise or no promise NFT. What do you think? Do you think Milady releases a game? Do you think it like what more do you expect to see from that community?
I mean, Charlotte did post like a little roadmap on his Twitter.
The
He
Fortnite
also,
looking one, right?
yeah, or like a week ago. I don't know. I can look it up right now. I think next big thing for Miladies, I think it's called like Remilio World 1.0, and no one really knows what it's gonna be. I I don't know. If they do release a game, that's gonna be really cool. But again, I personally don't find like blockchain games entertaining at all. I'd rather go play Total War or CS:GO instead of playing any blockchain game. But we will see something interesting.
What's your CS:GO rank?
I actually don't play CS:GO anymore, but just any shooter, FPS game really, or strategy game that works much better for me than any other blockchain stuff. But I think Remilia has something there for us. Just, I don't know, just because of Yayo and Bunklers. I don't know if you guys explored those yet.
No, I don't know.
Okay. Yayo, I didn't even know Yayo was a Remilia project, but then they admitted that it was. So Yayo is the biggest NFT on Kanto now. Yayo Corp. A pretty unique art, actually pixelated, but it's like very cool. It's like guys with like cars on like weird backgrounds and like with weird weapons and like suits. So it's like a Scarface meme take on the whole thing. So I have a Yayo banner on my personal account if you want to take a look. And then another Remilia project that is still minting right now are Bonklers. So Bonklers are a collection, I think, of 500, I don't know, very Remilia animated objects that are not even supposed to be a whole and present a whole together. And they are auctioning them off as, I feel like, just as Nouns DAO do. So it's like a perpetual auction with a new piece selling, yeah, one after another. I forgot the exact terms of the auction, but yeah, they're still minting that collection now. And the first Bonkler did go for over 60 ETH, I think, which was higher than the Basie floor back then, and still is because Basie has been down only, unsurprisingly. So I think Remilia will just keep releasing very interesting experiments in terms of art and community building. And I can only guess what that Remilia World 1.0 will look like. To be honest, I would hope that it's not a metaverse or not a game. I hope that it could be like a whole like festival. I don't know, maybe two days of just like Remilia action. So there would be like a Milady rave. There would be like Milady positive sponsors for I don't know, all kind of shit. But we'll see. They're definitely still working on and pushing the space forward. So I'm excited to see what comes out next out of Remilia.
Dude, I totally know what a yayo is. I have one of these. I completely forgot that I got like an 8x on this thing. I've done like 3 transactions total on Kanto in my life, probably. And I think I was like watching the ladies run up and I was like salty that I wasn't in. And I just had a little bit of Kanto laying around. So I was like, ah, fuck it, I'll just punt this. I didn't realize they got this big. That's awesome.
Dude, yeah, no, they really took off. I was buying, I didn't mint, unfortunately, and I only started buying into them after like my Milady friends started, so I was a tiny bit late, but I still made a 10x of those. So yeah, those are great too. I know a couple of my friends, they don't like the dude who's behind them, like the Yayo guy, but then a couple of my friends are good mutual friends with him. So yeah, I have no personal opinion about the creator, but the collection itself looks cool, and yeah, it did run up like 10x. It's pretty much the only thing to do on Kanto now is buy Yayo. Like there's nothing else, unfortunately, on Kanto. All those like other NFTs like long necks and the fuck are they called? I forgot. The small like little guys in hoods also on Kanto, like all of them dumped because all people rotated into Yayo. And the kind of the consensus here is that Kanto has been used as a filter for Yayo by Remilia. Like that, this was supposed to be, I guess, the kind of the nerdiest, the most unhinged collection of them all as of now, and so Kanto has been used as like a essentially filter for people to buy Yayo, and I think they will be migrating to Ethereum eventually.
That's crazy. I honestly don't. I have very little recollection of aping this thing, but I'm glad I did. I'm looking at the top 10 NFT collections on Kanto right now. There have been like 80 sales in the past 24 hours across the top 10, and Yayo has 71 of them, which is nuts.
Yeah, I'm telling you, yeah, it's pretty much taking over the entire NFT space on Kanto. There's nothing else there except.
Damn. Awesome. Now I gotta keep an eye on this somewhat. We're running on time a little bit here, Booba, but we really appreciate you coming on. This was a lot of fun.
So yeah, guys, follow Exit Liquidity on Twitter. Follow OmniX_NFT, and then also I'm just gonna tease it probably right here. Let me see if I can do it here. Yep, let's do it right here, real quick. And yeah, we're also still minting Omni Elements, our second official PFP collection. So the reveal should be coming out like literally this week. And all of our community at least has been waiting for it. I'm just gonna say that there are like 10 to 15% of the collection is animated with like GIF files instead of PNGs or JPEGs. Yeah, if you can scoop some now and wait for the reveal, you might as well just snipe a couple rare ones when they just come out. So keep an eye on that, guys, as well. And yeah, super excited to revisit this conversation sometime later in the future. Maybe when we have more releases or whatever. And yeah, thank you for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, man.